Nathan, in the future, this cut all that part before.
Uh-huh.
I'm hoping that visual just is a good cue for him on that point.
Mm-hmm. Or you could spike the audio real bad.
How would I even spike?
Now?
How would I spike the audio in an intro? That
like,
doesn't make sense to me.
By going, welcome!
No. that sounds like something a movie podcaster would do. Welcome to the another episode of the Effin' Game Podcast. I know you've been diligently waiting.
For almost a year.
Our very regular
podcast. The edge of your seat, wondering, what have Dylan, Price, and Nathan been playing this entire year? And, well, we aren't going to tell you all those games, because Nathan would spend all day telling you about that. But we are going to tell you what the top 5 best games that we've played this year. Now, quick little side note, is that that doesn't necessarily mean the games came out this year.
Yeah. We're not professional game podcasters. We don't do that.
Yeah. We are professional movie podcasters, game podcasters. Yep. We haven't got there yet. We're still filthy casuals, I guess, in that way. So, I think the best way to do is just go 5 across the board, 4 across the board, 3 across. Yeah.
Oh, yeah.
So let's just start with Price because it's always easier for me to mentally keep up with the invisible.
So I'm gonna lead off the whole time.
Yeah, you're gonna lead.
All right, that's totally fine.
Okay.
But my number 5 was one that actually came out just this year, actually a couple months ago, depending on whenever this gets uploaded. I've always loved the tactics genre, and I've always loved Mario vs. Rabbids since the first one, and the sequel got a release this year. Mario vs. Rabbids: Sparks of Hope. It's number 5, which is still high considering what I'm going to say later, that it was hard for me to pick my top 5 this year because I played a lot of what I think great games. But this one would be higher if it retained some of the more comedy and better story from the original. I actually laughed a couple of times on the original Mario vs. Rabbids. There were some chuckle moments. But they chose to make this a more story-driven game, and they also gave everybody voice acting, which was
Did
very
Chris Pratt
odd.
play the rabbits?
Yeah, he gets cast and everything, so that would make sense.
Yeah.
But even the rabbits get voices, which I did not think really worked.
That feels like a big mistake.
Yeah,
it was.
That's not their character at all.
Right.
Yeah, because they were the original minions, really. So they just do the slapstick, haha, pee pee poo poo kind of things.
Right.
But it works really well with Mario vs. Rabbids because they play off of each other because Mario characters don't talk, they don't talk, so they mesh really well together. But now even the narrator has a voice, the beepo, which is your cursor, which you'll understand once you play. They have a voice too, and it talks all the time. There's really too much talking in this game, really, and the dialogue doesn't hold up enough to where the comedy really necessitates dialogue, where previously it was just slapstick funny stuff where the original had it. But again, this is number 5 because this has improved on the gameplay dramatically. There are so many different things you do. They consolidated the skill trees to make them a lot more impactful, and that's basically how you get more power. And the guns don't upgrade. Have you played the original? Because I saw it up there. You haven't played it yet?
No.
Okay, so the guns don't really matter in this one. Just
guns?
skins.
Mario game?
Mario does get a gun.
Well, this is like an XCOM
style
game, right?
Yeah, it is, just like the original is as well.
Right.
The original is more XCOM because it's grid-based, whereas this one is
the movement.
free movement.
Yeah.
Pretty much free movement. Your character gets a radius of how far they can go, and they can go anywhere within it. They can just run back and forth. It doesn't matter, which makes it a lot more fun. And the best thing that they added were the sparks, which is basically a secondary ability that every character can get. Some of them can taunt enemies into your character. Other ones can add elemental effects to your guns. And it makes it a lot more tactical and really enjoyable. For example, there's one character, the Mario Rabbid, who is very based on close quarters combat, but they have to get close for it. And I found that spark I was talking about, which draws in enemies to an area, and actually made him very good. There's a lot of different options in this game that make it very fun, but the music is really what takes it away. They somehow pulled the Kingdom Hearts composer, forgot her name, and Grant Kirkhope, which he does a lot of the Donkey Kong stuff.
Oh, yeah.
And got both of them to make music for this game. And it is incredible. But there's a I think they had one composer in one room and one composer in the other room. It was like, you're doing this battle, you're doing this one. Because there were some songs that sounded exactly out of a Donkey Kong game and some that sounded exactly out of Kingdom Hearts.
Yeah.
Sometimes the tones don't mesh too well, but the pieces are all great. But it's still a great game overall. I'm still going to give it number 5. And it seems like this somehow has turned into the game I've probably talked the most about on this podcast, uninterrupted. So, yeah, that's my number 5.
Well, in movie podcasts, we're much like Always Sunny in that we're trying to scream our opinions at each other, over each other at all times.
Reason will prevail.
Yes. Game podcasts are a realm of civility and peacefulness. Or maybe it's just that when Mason's not here, we're much more polite to one another speaking. I don't know.
Yeah.
Strange considering he's the
I know.
most polite of the
But he has objectively the worst opinions on movies, though. Actually, he has objectively the worst opinions on just about everything. And again, he was the best man at my wedding. Love him to death, but he has terrible opinions.
I actually
on
can't
most
challenge that.
things.
That's just a fact. I can't.
Yeah.
I'm not faking
The
news.
Never Back Down 10 is still my favorite.
You know
His
what?
rationale, I just like it.
And you know
Yeah.
what? I love him for it.
Can't knock him.
Simpler man.
Yeah,
Simpler man at
fine.
times, that Mason.
Because Mason is a simple...
God, man. Anyway, so enough talking about podcast members who aren't on this show. God, my top 5. I can't wait to get the shill, casual, total hate on this one.
I've already resigned myself. I have my beard is gone. I'm a new man. And I'm not. You all are
No.
going to bring up Pokemon multiple times, and I'm just going to let
so
it be.
at number 5, it's not going to be a Pokemon. Are you kidding me? These are some of the best games that come out every year. So, number 5 is actually a mobile game.
Oh no.
And it's time for that old Marvel Snap, the TCG brought to you by Marvel.
Very nice. I like that.
Very easy, very quick way to shill some good money. I am very deep into it financially. No, I'm kidding. I have a hard and fast rule with gacha games and especially mobile games that I will only spend as much as I would on a normal full price game if I'm enjoying and playing it for that long. So I am $60 in, I'm capped right at it, and I feel like that's like, for me anyway, an optimal place where it's like I've got enough pool where I feel like I'm having fun, I'm deep enough into like the difficulty curves where it's like I'm playing against fun decks.
And it's all cosmetic, right?
Well, so there's 2 parts to it, right? If you're sitting there and saying, does money buy cards? Yes, but no, right? Effectively, they have a credit system where they have an upgrading path, and every time you upgrade a card, which is kind of like how you get everything, right? You got cosmetics, you can buy those on the side, and that's where I think a lot of money gets brought in from. But as you upgrade cards, a little thing, you get like 3 or 4, there's varying upgrades of cards like common, rare, ultra, like a standard TCG. And as you upgrade the card, it gets more special effects, but as that, do that, you'll get little like cubes, which just give you rewards. And in that reward track is always going to be like a standard every 4, every 8, every 12, a chest that gives you a chance to give you a new card from that pool, or it'll give you something random, yada, 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 typical gacha stuff. But, if you said, I spent $50, I bought a bunch of credits, I upgraded all the cards, and you said, well, then it unlocks a bunch of cards because by proxy, you're going up the track. So I think in that self, it's built in a way that, yes, it's gacha, but it's not like painfully gacha. Like, they aren't being absurd with it, and I think that's something that's very important to me. But more importantly is the game's just kind of fun. I like a game that's really quick to jam out. You go in, it's like a 2-minute game, bing, bang, boom, in and out, all right. Sometimes you just know you're losing and you bounce. There's a healthy little sense of competitiveness with like a retreat system, but honestly, I'm just a Marvel show, and I enjoy the property and the fact that the cards all play really well. Ben Brode from Hearthstone, whenever Hearthstone had its glory years, is the one making this game. So I think that says a lot about why the cards feel fun and creative instead of just boring and gacha and just effectively Marvel NFTs, if we really wanted to call it that. So I think that's the key difference with it. But it stays number 5 because, this little mobile game grinds me up. I'll wake up in the morning and I'm like, well, it's time to get my morning cup of Marvel Snap. And then, they're like, well, I got all my missions, so at this point I'm just grinding for the sake of, rank. I don't really care about that. All right, toss it. And then 4 or 5 hours when missions come back up, because you get missions, every 4 to 5 hours every day. Those give you credits and stuff, and that's how you upgrade. So it's kind of one of those just little check-in time things. I'm like, yeah, little thing I get. All right, got a small little break between sessions. Boom. Marvel Snap, and then it's just a quick little thing. So, happy little dopamine hits. I love cracking packs. I love trading cards. Number 5, Marvel Snap.
Is the video on, by the way, Nathan?
Yeah.
Are we using it?
Yeah.
No.
Oh, okay.
But is the mic on? Are you sure?
Okay, I was just making sure.
I can never tell. I don't see a green button. I do see a red button.
Okay, take it away, Nathan.
Yep.
So, I know you said that you thought Pokemon would be on our top 5.
And it is.
It's honestly, I think it's just going to end up getting bumped just out of it
Mm.
because there really is so many problems with the new Pokemon game just from a like usability.
Now remember, Scarlet and Violet came out this year, and Arceus.
Arceus came out this year as well.
Was it?
Yeah.
It was January, February.
Yeah, it did.
Yeah.
Wow. Okay.
Yeah, no
Yeah, I
worry.
didn't
It's on my
realize
fantasy
that.
group one, so. Well, never mind. Let me
Ugh.
re-scrap everything real quick.
Yeah.
Because Arceus was beautiful and perfect in every single way.
Yeah, that's a fair point.
That's the worry.
Regardless, my
He's committed to his top five now.
my
so.
number 5 is actually going to be Played Up.
Oh, good choice.
That's a good one.
Good choice.
I played a lot of that game this year. It's a little indie hit by the Gamecast group from YouTube, a group of YouTubers I've been watching for years that started their own little game company. They've made several little games over the years now, but this is their first like breakout success. And yeah, it's a really good time with just a small group of people. I mean, it's overcooked if it were turned into a roguelike, and they've
better.
Yeah, and better. Like they've
Definitely.
really knocked it out of the park.
Yeah.
You know, like it is the game that I currently hope for the most to be added to, though. At the same time,
A sequel would
because
be
like
great.
it's really fun and engaging, but like I would like to see like a better reward system or you know, just more different things going on. Like it's got a great structure and
It
has
does.
been a ton of fun, but it is one where I could see there being even more there.
And I
over
like it
time.
so much more than Overcooked because Overcooked has like every map, not every map, but there's basically usually like 5 regions. Each region has its own gimmick, and that's kind of it. And once you get that gimmick, that's pretty much all it has. Whereas Played Up, it's different every time you go, depending on what you're making, what you put in there. It just makes every experience really, really fun, which I like
and it
a
can
lot.
get very interesting if you start going into franchising multiple times.
Yeah.
We played it the other night, and we were up to franchise level 3, where I had done variety every time. So we were cooking burgers and salads and like just and pizza and like a whole bunch of different dishes, which meant that we only had like a handful of customers coming in every day, but they could order multiple times, and it was just this like weird chaos of 3 people needing to be in the kitchen while one person is running the whole front end. And like I don't know, there's just a lot of depth of variety in what can end up happening through the course of your playing of that game.
Yeah.
So like even though you're in the same building every time, you're just progressing through the same 15 days. You know, the decisions you make and the way you build things out make for a very different experience.
This game was going to be, if we did top 10, it was going to be my number 7 or something like that. I thoroughly enjoyed this game. Had a lot of fun with it.
I regret every day that we don't do a live 4 to 5 hour stream of this game where we role play our roles that we have to do in there. One of us is, sir, we've got a burger. Shut the fuck up, Dylan, I'm working on it. Just always screaming in the kitchen.
I'm getting your burger.
Yeah. Go get your burger when it's damn and ready. And just continually smashing plates in the back just to match the energy. Somebody's going to hear this on this wonderful podcast and steal that idea if it's not done already. But number 4, Price.
How about we stagger it? You do number 4.
Oh god, that's gonna get
So
really
I
weird
have to
now,
see
then, because then it'll go Doom and then.
Yeah.
Yeah, you could snake it back.
Yeah, let's snake it. Nathan, go ahead and take number 4.
Oh.
Yeah.
Oh. Okay.
Because I'm in the middle, so it gets weird if I start on a point
Sure.
and he starts on it.
Well, I mean, if that's the case, then I guess since Pokemon Arceus came out this year,
I'll do it.
Yeah.
I'll actually give it the number 4 spot.
Yep.
Wow.
Because it did for Pokemon what has been needed for that series for a long time, and Scarlet took a lot of that and built on it, but they I don't know, they just have such bad performance issues, and you know, I do just get really frustrated with them adding quality of life features and then taking them away in the next one. And most specifically, I'm just talking about the fact that in Arceus, you can hear whenever there is a shiny Pokemon that has spawned, and you cannot do that in Scarlet and Violet, and that is just not cool. Like there's no genuine reason to do that, and there's a lot of arguments for the fact that they should be doing that just for the fact that there's a lot of people that are colorblind, and you just won't know. So it,
Huh.
yeah, I don't know. There's a lot of reasons to be frustrated with the new game, but Arceus really knocked it out of the park and showed what a Pokemon game could be that was actually more action oriented and a lot more actively engaging. So yeah, that one will take my number 4.
Did the story not detract from the experience for you all? That
Yeah,
was my biggest pet peeve with that game.
so I'll be honest with you, I didn't pay attention.
Yeah,
But it throws at you so egregiously that that's why it impacted my experience so much. There's so much text, you can't skip it. And I'm not trying to detract from y'all's fun of it. I'm just saying that was my experience with the game.
Well, and I think the bar for most Pokemon game players is that if anything, we've learned that the game's stories are rarely engaging or interesting as far as video game standards, and it's more lore than it is story. Like the games that we get, the character story, it's like, here's a fucking kid, he's going on a journey. I don't know, we have to kind of do this as a rough idea, and they just feel like they don't leave a lot of room for creativity. The most ambitious changes probably Black and White.
Scarlet and Violet actually did a much better job with their story,
which I agree with.
That was the first time the story has actually been pretty decent.
I've heard good things about it.
Yeah, no, it actually felt refreshing and engaging. I will say this to Game Freak, and we'll go ahead and transition it because my number 4 is Pokemon Scarlet and or Violet. In my case, it was Scarlet because that's the one I got. Nathan got both. But so with Scarlet, I feel as though that they did do some really fun stuff as far as like putting effort into story, right? Like it's so funny with Pokemon games. You could literally have like a pro con and a con chart for each one throughout the generations. And then somewhere in the middle, there's going to be like, maybe quality of life changes. And then it's like, here's the quality of life changes that made it to this one and that didn't make it. And it'd be a very frustrating chart to look at, probably.
Oh, it's the thing that always pisses me off with these games. And they don't care. They don't listen.
No. At this point, they've almost gone as far as to say on record, they're like, if we listen to you guys, we will lose our fucking minds. Even though we're asking for very small things at this point.
Just asking for them to put in the things that they have put in other games.
Yeah, but if they give us an inch, then we'll give them death threats. And if they don't, we'll give them death threats. So really, I guess, if I'm a developer, fuck the fans. But fuck you, developers. Go die. Anyways, so Scarlet and Violet, why? Here is, honestly, the whole big reason that it ends up in my number 4. And because, yes, it has its problems. Frame rate dips like a hilarious amount. Sunflora scene, you know exactly what I'm talking about. Sometimes characters just get unabashedly sad in the land play up.
I have a new one I need to show you.
Oh, I can't wait. But most importantly, what I think they did that, God, talk about one feature that almost always just makes out in a Pokemon game, the land play. When we were playing here and we had a whole LAN party with it, it'd been the first time I had a LAN party in many years. And if I had to sit there and say whatever game it was playing, good or bad, technically difficult, whatever, I had a lot of fun doing that. And having a whole day of just jamming Pokemon, Nathan over here flying through the game, just saying, all right, I'm just going to play the strong Pokemon and blitz through it. All me and Mark and Jill and Chris are just just enjoying the game at a nice casual pace. Nathan's like, I'm fighting a champion. We're like second or third gym or something.
Yeah, it's like the second day after it comes out. Yeah. I'm fighting the Elite Four right now.
Yeah, but it's the funny thing for me where it's just like something about being in a room and truly seeing what each person wants out of Pokemon and how they can get different things from it. And I think that for me as a Pokemon fan is where I'm like, fuck yeah, dude. You know what, Nathan? He's like, fuck this game. He just wants to shiny hunt at this point. And I'm like, I truly enjoy sitting here and building a team and then trying new Pokemon and doing new ones because I enjoy the aspects of being like a trainer, even though I don't really care for competitive because it's a little too nitty gritty. But then you just got I don't know, Mark, who probably just wants to enjoy the fucking experience. He's just like, I don't know, I just like it. And he's like, I don't really want to be much of anything. Like if we were in the Pokemon world, he'd be like a breeder or something. He'd go off and wouldn't even be a trainer. He'd be like, who fucking cares? Like, I want to go home and cuddle a Growlithe and call it a day. And you know what? Fair. So I think seeing the diversity of it, but all of us being able to play it in the same one and just that hijinks now for the first time, that was a stellar addition with it. One that I think is so worth noting that I have to put it in my number 4. Because it was very, very fun. By the time I got home and I was playing it, it almost felt like it was the game was more or less fun for me because I remember thinking like, I kind of just wish I was playing it with somebody, and it's one thing to play beside somebody, it's another thing to play in their world, though. So Scarlet and Violet, you got that much very, very right. Fix the frame rate, though, buddy. It's chugging.
Well,
true.
and like the online connectivity stuff because
Yeah, well,
like,
that too.
we ran into that quite a bit too, where we were
Right.
getting disconnected from.
We
each
had
other.
we had long stretches of it working though. We had long
Yeah.
stretches of it working with a couple drops here and there. So I would say it's like it's not so big that it's broken, but it definitely needs it has room for
It's just
improvement.
it's one of those games where it's like once your group breaks, reforming it takes
Yeah.
several minutes out of everybody's time.
game, right? Oh, quick side note before I pass it over to Price though. The music at the tail end of the game though, fucking crazy good.
The crater music.
Area Zero
it
music.
sounds like it's from Final Fantasy VII.
Yeah,
Like,
it's
it literally sounds like music that you would hear.
I've likened it to like Nier Automata. Like it has like a very Nier and Dread one. No, I would play you like 2 or 3 songs from it and just be like, it. So much of it is like happy, sunny, cheerful music up until, but then like once you start hitting like in-game ones, like in-game boss fights or something, it's like it's okay, it's good. And then you get into Area Zero and it's like this like, it's like Annihilation as a video game. Like it feels like Pokemon dropped you into Annihilation, and then it's just like all these Pokemon are hybrids now. The music is very bizarre and trancey, and it has like kind of like a deep little like grind to it. It's super fucking cool. The last boss fight, which I won't spoil, but you probably know what it is also has some sick fucking music. I've just been going to listen to those on YouTube because they're not on Spotify. But I would put those in my work playlist any minute. But anyway, all that aside, I don't know. Price, are you just?
I was hoping that you were going to take a second something to hear it. I found it on.
Yeah. You got to keep listening because it gets hyper by the minute. Oh, we'll get there.
I'm not going to hold it up.
No, we'll get it later.
My number 4, it seems like we've actually done pretty good on keeping on the 2022 train.
I've tried to just keep mine exclusively 2022.
I was looking at my list, and only one game didn't come out this year, and I think it was late last year or something. But anyway, my number 4 is actually going on the indie track with Cult of the Lamb, which came out a few months ago. Really like that game. I would say it's split in half, basically, where half of it is a roguelike Hades kind of style, where you pick your weapon, get skills, that kind of thing. But the other half is the half that really carries the game, which is the sim aspect, where you manage your cults, try to take care of them, because the sim aspect pairs very, very well with the tone of the game, which is kind of what it goes for. That it's a goofy, lighthearted presentation, because it's all sprite work that everybody's kind of bouncing around with the music, but it's also incredibly, incredibly dark, because you're still a cult leader. You sacrifice your followers to the gods. You make them eat poop. Like, there's so much you can do with that game, and it all plays very well together. The two halves mesh very well with each other. Even though the hack and slash isn't the best, the sim part really carries it. The music's also really great in that one too, surprisingly. It's more of an 8-bit kind of style of music, but the graphics are really what sold me on it, because the style is very interesting. It's got dark colors, very thick outlines on all the characters, and is really, really fun. I really would, like, out of all the games on my list, like, that's the one I would really recommend to you all to try and play. It's really fun.
It is on my radar. I will say, as like an outside observer of the game, like having watched a couple of streams of it, I still don't get it. Like, I don't get the appeal, but I if I do find it on a decent sale or something, I'll be picking it up and checking it out, I'm sure.
I played it on release, and it did have a few technical issues. Nothing too significant. For example, last year, Ruin King was one of my tops, and after every fight, I would have trouble. It would blue screen me and then send me back occasionally. The only thing that happened with me on this one on release, which I'm sure they patched now, is when you go into your church and you hold a sermon, that's when you can sacrifice followers and you can sacrifice your old people. And rather than having all of your colony, which could be 30 or 40 people, I only had 3. And those were the only 3 that were in every sermon that I had, which was really frustrating, because that was not supposed to be the case. It was some glitch, but I'm sure they patched it now. But that's just my experience, and still, like, it's still top 4 or number 4 for me, and enjoyed it thoroughly.
So that brings us to number 3.
Yep.
Time to make Price mad. God of War Ragnarok sitting heavy at number 3. So
go ahead and justify this one.
Let me start by saying God of War Ragnarok is a very, very good game.
Okay. What about if the Ironwood section was completely taken out?
Yeah, it'd probably go up. So here,
I actually kind of agree.
right.
With
So
that.
here, I was about to say for all the
Go ahead.
for all the
Sorry.
shit you would give me, and let me start with the goods, right? The core story really great. The character engagement really fun. The battle system lovely, strong. It's an improvement from God of War 1, something all these critics kept saying. I meant to try to replay God of War. Well, I say God of War 1, really it's God of War 5, but not we're splitting hairs. 2018's God of War.
Yeah.
I wanted to go back and replay it again before I replayed this, but I just didn't find the time to. Because I wanted to have one-for-one comparison, but really it feels all about the same, but it still feels just as good. I feel like the balance is a lot more engaging for what skills you can pick up for it. But at the end of the day, it's just like this is a great hack and slash. Has some really fun stuff with it. It's wonderful and it's polished. There was no big glitches or frame rate struggles or anything like that. This is a very by all fine AAA game. My drawback on this and why this doesn't go too much higher for me is because the story is probably the strongest part of this game. This is a story-driven game because you're there for the engagement of, like, where are Kratos and Atreus and everybody going to land by the time this thing's all said and done. And good God, this game is girthy and lengthy and long in a way that I didn't find as satisfying as I wanted it to be. It didn't feel like... I would say this is a fat game if we were going to use our, like, movie things for it. Just because there were segments and things that just felt like long, like, derailings that went on for much longer than it needed to, for characters I don't particularly care about.
Besides Ironwood, where would you say that was the case? I'm not arguing with you.
I would say there's something just in the middle as a whole where it felt like everything just stretched a little bit longer than what I would have what was felt right.
I wish we didn't play as Atreus as much. Definitely.
Atreus definitely gave him a little bit too much time. If you just gave me Atreus Dream World or in the Giant World in that run aspect and then shrink that down.
Yes.
Because that went on for much longer than it should have.
Yeah.
I loved the characters and the world that I brought into it, but that's my biggest problem with it. It's the Quentin Tarantino problem. He sat in the scenes for too long. If you shrink a lot of these scenes up, this probably does become a very much more concise and tight game. But Ironwood, I don't think I actually take it all out, but because the characters and the lore they introduce in it is good, but you speed that shit up. Because we're walking around on a camel collecting apples for a little while, and I'm like, fuck me, dude. I think the other part is like, Atreus could have just been that, and could have been, go check out Odin, and then that's all of the Atreus gameplay stuff. I think that would have been fine. I felt like the reason they drag it out is to make it appeal to the concept of making you think, shit, am I going to have to get used to playing as Atreus because they might kill Kratos in this game? And then, I feel like that's kind of the bait and switch.
I think giving him a full move set like they did, though, was enough to exemplify that.
It is.
Because, wow, he has finishers. He has all of these different abilities. He has a whole skill tree of his own. Like, maybe they are going to kill Kratos this game, but they just make you play him over and over and over.
And let's be honest, the one thing that's good about Atreus is his mobility and the fact that I feel like the camera isn't hugging his back as hard, which that's my big gripe with AAA games is how close that camera is. And they're like, watch your back, Kratos. I'm like, well, is my left back or my right back, dude? I don't know. 50% of my vision is cut. So I found that kind of frustrating. But the TLDR of why I don't want to put this higher is because although I enjoy it, this wasn't something that I was like, cool, I want to go grind out all the Valkyries. And I went back and I killed all the end game bosses that I could find. But I did that and I didn't want to explore anymore. I felt like the world, I was just kind of like, okay, the story's told. And are you going to make a sequel and will I probably enjoy it and look forward to it? For sure. But at the same time, I was just like, no, we did the shit. We killed Odin. We fucking built all these gods. Thor got his. And I was just like, okay. I don't really want to explore much more after I beat the game. And for me, I remember thinking God of War 2018. I was like, fuck yeah, let's kill these Valkyries now. And I was like stoked. And the areas felt a lot more fun to explore. This one, it was just kind of like, huh? I beat it. And how I felt fatigued by the time I got to the end of it. So...
But it still hits your number 3.
It still hits my number 3 because it is.
I know. I've heard a lot of you'll hear the positives from me.
Which is me saying because it is such a good game, but it does get dragged down. It starts as easily what could be many people's number 1 games, and for me, it just gets dragged down for these reasons. At the end of the day, it comes down to subjective enjoyment, and my thing was just like I really enjoyed this, but I didn't want more from it. I didn't enjoy it more than my number 2 or my number 1, and that's strictly why it's at number 3. Nathan.
Well, for my number 3, it is Luigi's Mansion.
You just played that.
You just played it today.
I played it a week ago.
Yeah.
Oh, wait.
All right.
Hey,
excuse me.
That's this year.
Mm-hmm.
It is.
That's true. Just barely.
The first game that has not came out this year on our list.
I mean, it's not going to be the last one.
With you, it never is.
No.
But yeah, I mean, I was very much surprised by this game. It is visually really impressive for what it's doing on the Switch, and for the fact that it was one of the earlier titles to come out on the Switch.
It was.
Holds up super well. Very creative ideas. You're exploring this 15. Well, it's 15 floors above, but also 2 floors below hotel. And the only things I would say pull back from me, like just being absolutely glowing about it, is I think they pad their length a little bit here and there by having some moments where like you're about to like progress to the next floor, but then you beat the boss, but then you have to now do this whole cat and mouse chase with this cat ghost that has stolen the thing that lets you go to the next floor, and you have to go through several previous floors chasing this cat down just to pad the length. That is one thing that distracts from this game, but it is otherwise very impressive in every boss fight. Is like just it's that Mario level of like Mario bosses are typically really fun, not overly hard, but really fun, clever experiences, and that's what this is through and through. And then just the floor design, like every floor feels like a whole different kind of world in a way that you wouldn't expect from a hotel. Like there's a like archaeology floor, and then there's a floor that's like this whole magic trick kind of thing where it's just like a group of magician ghosts that you're fighting against. And I don't want to spoil a whole lot of it, but this starts off making you think that you're just in a normal hotel through the first couple of floors, and then it just gets wilder and wilder as you go up, and it is.
And then you're in The Shining, actually. So.
And it is absolutely worth a playthrough. I think it took me about 15 hours to beat this game, which, I mean, 17 floors. So yeah, 17 floors in 15 hours. I think that's a pretty good length for a game.
Yeah, I'd like to borrow this one from you at some point. Actually,
Yeah,
it does.
Yeah, I mean,
you gotta give back your old borrowed games before you get new ones, though, Bryce. You don't get to borrow a Nathan game until you give back Pokemon.
But yeah, so that's my piece on that one though.
My number 3 is another game that came out this year, another indie game, Potionomics. If you all heard of this?
Is that the one that's got like the anime looking characters?
Kind of. Yeah, it's got a very distinct.
This sounds like Genshin
so
Impact.
that one is more on my radar than Cult of the Lamb is. Like I will play that before I play Cult of the Lamb.
I mean, it was my number 3, and it's maybe a 10-hour, 12-hour game and $25 indie game, but it surprised me how much I enjoyed it. It's a deck builder game. First of all, but that's probably like
that's why I've heard of it. Okay.
30% of it. The rest of it is really a sim kind of game, because the draw of the game is that your uncle has passed trying to explore this castle, and he died, and he left you his potion shop, but it's in debt, so you have to pay off this enormous debt that your uncle has. So the way you do that is by winning these competitions that happen every week. That happen at the end of every week. There's a potions contest where you have to make a potion that's good enough to go in this competition, and you raise your skill by doing that by interacting with the residents of this world and sending them out on missions to get you better ingredients so you can make better potions. So better ingredients, better potions.
Papa
John's.
Well, I was also just thinking of like Quaxoquidlenburg too, where you're just like filling your bag with ingredients to make a good potion.
Exactly. But this is a game that my number 2 game of this year is all gameplay based with no story or anything else. It's strictly on the gameplay. Whereas this one has pretty good gameplay with the deck building and everything, but it's everything else that goes into it that really makes it shine. The dialogue's actually kind of funny. I actually read all of the text that came up. It's not voice acted, it's all text based. But similar with Cult of the Lamb, the presentation is the best, I think, on it. The art style is very expressive, very vibrant, very colorful, and really draws you into the world. And the character
design is fantastic.
And the character designs are awesome. They all are very distinct and have their own personalities. It's a joy to interact with them. And it's also the time-based kind of thing, kind of like Persona, where at the end of the week you have to make sure you have all this done.
Yeah.
And it was just a lot of fun. I mean, I may go back to it eventually, but I feel like I got my run out of it. It could possibly be higher. My number 1 and 2 are pretty locked in. The only reason I can't put it any higher though is because at the end, like you basically have a week to make this last potion, and I had it made on day 1 because I was just so far ahead, ready to go, and then I was just skipping days where I was like, okay, I just want to see how this
Persona problem
ends.
where it's just like, get me to the story again.
I've got to where I need to be at the end. Let's chalk this up. But it's still, even though that did happen, I still enjoyed it a lot and really would recommend. Maybe not to you because you're not as big of a deck building person, but Nathan, definitely.
I like deck building.
Oh, deck building. I'm sorry. I was thinking of worker placement.
Yeah, no, worker placement
sorry.
I can't stand. Yeah. Throw that out of video games and board games. It's a terrible mechanic.
Is it used in video games too much? Like worker placements? Besides like RTSs?
The only thing that you could really say is like worker placement is whenever they digitize a board game.
Yeah.
Yeah, I can't.
Effectively.
Yeah, I can't think of too much.
Yeah.
Sorry.
We've broken our snake chain, so we're just kind of going down the list now, I guess. Anyway, so to not hear Price talk about another game for a little bit, I'll just go to my number 2. Number 2, Pokemon Arceus. Sorry, Pokemon Legends.
You look at me like I'm gonna say something. New beard.
No, I don't.
Me.
I don't know. It's my focal point because there's something about looking at the camera and knowing that it's useless that
Yeah.
bothers me. So, plus this way is easier to turn for my neck because it's I really arthritis in my neck.
But you are talking towards the mic, looking that way.
Son of a bitch.
Ooh.
So Pokemon Legends Arceus is my number 2. Now you're sitting here and we've got fans in the audience who are just like, this man really shilled Pokemon Legends Arceus over God of War. Yeah, fuck you. It's fucking good. It is so good. It has done so much for the concept of expanding Pokemon gameplay, making it feel like an immersive world. Sure, Pokemon Let's Go, Eevee and Pikachu technically were kind of doing the rough idea to begin with, but this felt like the final leap in execution, and when this game came out 10 months before Scarlet and Violet and felt like it did the premise and run better, man, that's saying something.
It did run well.
No, it ran very well for a one that was
because they were smart in making it semi-open world.
Yeah,
where you went out and
Sectors.
then came back.
Yeah.
Whereas I remember Nathan said that Scarlet and Violet apparently loads the entire map at once, which is so dumb, especially on the Switch. Like that does not make sense.
So Pokemon B Team or whatever is running this one, and Pokemon A Team is running like the mainline one. B Team fucking takes the W this year, man, because Legends Arceus came out running much more smoother as a holistic video game.
Mm-hmm.
I think what I really thought was really cool about this game, not only just all the mini quality of life changes that we start to see in Scarlet and Violet, but it came here first. My big thing was that they were just like, all right, fuck it, let's just do something wild. Let's go to the past. Let's do this. The story, again, like I said before, it's less so about story, more about lore. And this lore is really just Diamond and Pearl ancient lore. Like, it just set it into a past setting with it. But what I did think was really cool is that they made, like, catching them all part of the post-game content. Like, they made that, and some people might find that as, like, a frustrating gatekeep. But I think when you're saying, like, that's always been the rough premise of Pokemon, like...
That's what I was going to say. That was my favorite part about it.
Yeah.
Is that catching, just having the Pokemon was important. That's it. Like, you didn't have to have... Sometimes it had to have a certain move, that kind of thing. But I like that. It showed, like, you're really engaging with the premise of Pokemon. Like, gotta catch them all.
Well, and they made it to where you could do it in the one game. Because they didn't make it, like, a dual release. You know, and... just to piggyback on this with where I was talking about it earlier, but I forgot to mention this, the quest system that they had with all the side quests was actually nice. Like, and that's something that they did not put in to Scarlet and Violet, which is another, like, sadly missed feature that I think added just that much more, like, fun and engagement to that game, because you were doing things that was actually affecting the appearance of the village that you were in. So you were, like, you know, like... An example of this is in Scarlet and Violet, you have a dorm room that is your dorm room, and later on in the game, you can visit like a couple of the other students, and they have like a lot of stuff going on in there. You don't have anything going on in yours, and you can change nothing about it.
Yours is just an F shack,
like that.
And
that kind of like lack of personalization and like lack of like you know, visual growth, I think, is the sort of stuff that Scarlet has taken a big step back on.
Right. I mean, even if I were to say, like, with Legends Arceus, if we really wanted to be like, okay, the town grew as you did these quests and you really expanded it out, They had a pseudo hub base they could have made out of the Academy in Scarlet and Violet that could have.
Yeah, and that's
grown
what I
more vibrant.
expected was going to be
Yeah.
the case.
I mean, honestly, so I think that you're talking about like Pokemon games that have really set the bar. This, truthfully, may be the best Pokemon. I mean, like just outright the best Pokemon game. Period.
Yeah.
And people who I don't know, really deep Pokemon nerds are gonna be like Gale of Darkness and bring out these random ones or something like that.
Oh, they're wrong.
Yeah.
They're wrong. And but like we're just talking about it as a holistic game that made you truly enjoy catching Pokemon. And the battles were fine. And also let's not pretend that the difficulty curve wasn't insane at this
Here's
one
the
too.
best Pokemon game.
Yes, Pokemon Pikachu,
Park.
Wii's
What is
Adventure,
that?
and Poke Park
Poke Park.
Wonders.
I want to see it.
Yeah. Oh my gosh, the Wii ones.
Piplup.
My last point on this one is that they introduced a difficulty curve that made Pokemon feel fucking scary too. There were so many times where I was like, "Oh fuck yeah, I'm gonna go catch this giant angry Snorlax," and it
And then
killed me dead.
Oh, yeah.
Smacked you down.
Yeah, and they actively chased me, but the traversal in this game was also above and beyond as well. Like whenever you started catching like the flying and the climbing, and then you go into the sea, and you had like the Thunderosis challenges and stuff like that as you're catching those legends, made you feel like a real like hero instead of just a kid who just battles really well.
Yeah.
So I think
like there was a lot of active elements to it that have never been in the game before.
Yes, the story and characters, a lot of room for improvement. But at the end of the day, this game had almost everything else I've been asking for Pokemon for a long time and things I didn't know I wanted from Pokemon. So fuck yeah, Pokemon Legends Arceus definitely deserves my number 2. It could almost get my number 1. But what we gotta do? We got the best game of the year, and that's just uncontended across the board. Nathan, number 2.
So my number 2 is a game I haven't actually completed yet.
Hey! Now
That's
Price.
the spirit.
Price is over here thinking somewhere in his head, should that be allowed?
I
And
don't care.
and he doesn't care because
That's
he's a
okay.
fresh shaved
Uh,
man. So
Yeah, new man.
new man.
So my number 2 is Horizon Zero Dawn.
I remember he
I-
did say he played this.
I have played
Wow.
a lot of this game.
This is fair.
And I'm not at the end yet, but what I've played so far, it's
when you get to the end.
the world is exactly the kind of thing I really enjoy, like a post-apocalypse set in our world. Like that is meant for me to just immediately love it.
Yeah.
And then add on the fact that this takes place in like the Utah, Colorado, Montana area. Like whenever I finally realized where I was, because at one point going through the desert, I'm just riding along on my little robot pony, and I look off to the right, and I'm like, that kind of looks like Delicate Arch, but not quite right, so that's probably not that. And I just kept on going, and then like I look over to the left, I was like, that is 100% Bryce Canyon. And like the more I'm looking around, I was like, I've been to these places. Like this is awesome.
Yeah.
I just absolutely love the fact that they put these real locations into that game. And I mean, again, I haven't beaten it yet, and I haven't honestly got that far into the main story. I took a turn.
The classic.
So there's the long necks or whatever that are everywhere.
Tall
I
necks.
wanted
Did you
the
start
tall
doing all
necks.
those first?
Yeah, I did all of those, and I went
I can't
all the
say
way
I
up to
did.
the Frozen North, the Frozen
You put the
Wild.
fucking
God.
DLC.
I jumped off of the main story as soon as you got to the desert. I talked to the guy in the main town, and then I went up there, and
I'll get back to it.
I completed that entire DLC, and am just now coming back around. So
Oh
I'm
my
like
God.
level 50 something, and the
Insane.
quests are like below level 20.
Yeah.
So it's gonna be interesting. But,
Game developers hate this man.
So the big
Really.
T-Rex comes up and
Well,
you smack him
yeah.
with your spear one time.
And it's funny because that area for the DLC is guarded by this like shadow wolf fire breathing robot that
Right.
is supposed to basically tell you like, hey, you aren't ready to go here. You shouldn't do this. And I killed it.
They said, "Watch me."
But as Souls players, we said challenge accepted.
Yeah,
and
it's
we
like
will-
all you're saying is that you're really hard, and that's exactly what I'm looking for. So fantastic! This is where I'm going, and I'm gonna stay here.
This is my home.
Yeah.
So yeah, that might mess up my like the rest of the game experience.
Nathan
but-
says the rest of the game was too easy.
Yeah. While I'm over leveled by 30
Yeah,
levels.
by 30 levels of it, right?
So I love the second one. Forbidden West, I think, is in my opinion a lot better than Zero Dawn.
Whew,
but
talk about my biggest disappointment of this year, actually.
yeah, I'm gonna talk about that in a second.
Yeah, we'll get there.
But the biggest thing for me personally, and I want to hear your opinion on it, is in the first one, I like the overarching story of Horizon. I think is second to none. I love the sci-fi stuff that it's doing, and you probably haven't got there because you're not at the end. But the
No.
large overarching thing that it's doing is incredibly
Really,
interesting in my
really good
opinion.
story. Yes.
But the story of Zero Dawn, I found insufferable for one main reason, and that's they can't. So you've gotten to this. They cast out Aloy because I forgot exactly why, but they basically hate her, shun her,
She-
discriminate against
The-
her.
the
Fucked
whole-
up all the rituals and the religion of
And-
Well, no, it's because she basically just showed up out of nowhere inside
Yes.
of
right.
the...
She's
And-
always been that.
and they didn't understand her and like hate her on site, exiled her,
Yeah.
hate her. But then the whole story of that game until like the end, where you get to the really good stuff, is about how she's wanting to save everybody and just be a general good person. And I did not vibe with that personally at all.
Price is like, this should be a villain story,
It's-
well earned.
yeah.
She should be killing.
She's just too altruistic, in my opinion,
Yeah.
which I think is like Aloy is the biggest drawback for me of the whole series. I think she's such a wet blanket, doesn't really do too much. But again, did you feel that same dissonance that I did, where she's too good
Not-
and they treat her terribly?
Not really, I guess. Like, there's a couple of people that are jerks in her
Yeah.
village, but I think they did a good job of making at least like all the tertiary people seem like they were warming to her pretty quickly.
Everybody
But
kinda
there's
seems
just
like
a
they just wanna-
couple of like basically anybody in positions of power
Mhm.
were jerks. So that was fine to me. It's like, yeah, of course they're assholes. Of course
You
I
don't
don't
become
like
empowered
them.
Fight the
with
But I'm
that.
man.
not like I'm
V
not
for
I'm
Vendetta.
not trying to help them. I'm trying to help like the people in general. So I still like track that.
But I
just
still
fine.
remember the people being absolutely terrible to her. For example, I remember this vividly when you go up for your trial or
Mhm.
whatever, and I remember pretty much a lot of the people in your group that you're competing with are very, very awful to her.
Oh,
there's
that's
one
in-
guy
that's
who's
in the
just-
early
the
game
one
trial,
guy,
though.
really. There's a girl that kind of takes sides with her very quickly,
Mm.
but pretty much all of them die.
Yeah.
No, they do die.
Yeah.
I'm just saying, like,
Dickheads get theirs in the series, right?
But even that girl that didn't really deserve it, she dies too.
Yeah.
But yeah, like they definitely just try and like have those characters that are going to piss you off and like make you
Yeah,
feel
yeah.
strongly
I get
about
those.
things.
the bullies.
Yeah.
Yeah. Yeah, I mean, I would say overall with Horizon, and I'm not going to get into the story aspects and stuff because it kind of all curves around. But by the time you get to Zero Dawn, you're a little bit of a hero of the story, and that seems.
You mean Forbidden
straightforward.
West?
Or Forbidden West, yeah.
Yeah.
With Forbidden West, and I think like my biggest gripe with it, not to talk about its sequel, totally out of context with it, but
Are you basically done with number 2?
Yeah.
Okay.
sure.
yeah,
Yeah, go ahead, because I was wanting to talk about it too.
I just feel like overall with that one, it just felt like a very strong disappointment in the fact that it's just like people are info dumping left and right with it, and I just didn't feel like it was like that much in Zero Dawn. Zero Dawn was like Aloy's story. Now it feels like everybody's trying to tell their story and they're trying to get their piece of it, and Aloy seems annoyed across the board to be in her own game like most of the game, and I'm mirroring her effect with that.
Yeah.
That being said, I want to keep playing because the world's awesome and the gameplay is super fun. It's giant fucking mech robots in a post-apocalyptic war.
You never beat it?
No, I still haven't beaten it. I've gotten like
The end is so good.
I've gotten what I feel like is probably about a third of the way in, and I was just like, I'm gonna put you on the back burner for right now because it also did come out around the same time
As
like,
Elden Ring.
as Elden Ring and everything
Yeah.
else. So
So 2 giant,
it got Elden
Triple
Ringed
A.
out.
yeah,
Um,
which I will hear about here in a moment. But right now, you are most definitely not.
yes.
Because my number 2 is one that is my only one that didn't come out this year, and it is Riftbreaker. It's another indie game, and it is all gameplay and
You've
system
talked
based.
about
We've
that.
talked about it because you
Yeah.
saw me playing it on
Yeah.
Steam, and you were like,
Yeah.
"How do you like it?" And I remember I was like, "I love this game so far." And looking back on it, I played it back. I saw in February is when I beat it. I bought it again on PS5 to play on a different thing to see how it would run, and just I want to play it again. It is so much fun. It's got everything I could almost possibly want in a game besides anime stuff, I guess.
Yeah.
Because
Give me busty waifus. Otherwise, 9 out of 10.
it's got it's a tower defense. First of all, because you got to defend yourself from the aliens. Because you're basically just colonizing planets
Mhm.
and
Oh, so you're
trying to
Spain.
build something, kind of.
Okay.
But you're in this giant suit, mech suit, and it's a tower defense. It's a colonization game as well.
I've already talked about
So
this.
you're building up a base. I probably talked about it on
Yeah,
our
yeah,
podcast.
yeah, yeah.
Recorded an
We've
episode
recorded
where you
this.
Yeah.
discussed this. Yeah.
That's the only
And,
reason it sounds familiar.
It's a base building game, and there's some other. It's also kind of a factory kind of game as well, because you still have to pull resources from the planet and everything. And the one part where I was really wary of it is you do planet hop to other planets. And most of the time, that means you leave behind all of your progress from your previous planet, and you just go to your next planet and just base there, build another one, then leave it. Which is, I hate that so much.
This to me, that idea kind of jumps back to. Did you ever play Dragon Quest Builders?
Yes,
Because
that's why I stopped playing it.
Yeah,
That's
that's exactly why
yeah.
I stopped too. It's just that exact thing of like, okay, I've done all this work. I've spent a long time in this particular area building up this village, and then I go and
And
I'm
do the
back to
same
zero
thing.
and do it again.
And do the exact same thing. And I got so annoyed. That's why I stopped playing that game. But in Riftbreaker, everything gets back to your main planet. They're basically tertiary planets, and they just all somehow give you all resources for your main, and you always go back there at the end. And even while you're gone from your side planets, there's attacks that can happen, and you have to rift jump to that planet to defend it.
Mm-hmm.
It's a really great game. There's not too much to say about it. It's all system and game based, and it's so much fun because of it. It's not too deep. There's not much for me to say about it. Graphics are fine. The performance can dip if you don't have a very good PC running, because there's a lot of enemies that come on your screen, and there's a lot of particles going on.
Mm-hmm.
So it can chug at those moments if you don't have a really good PC. I haven't played since I built my new one. So I'll be interested to see how it runs. It's on PS5 now, so I'll be interested to see how it runs on there. So do your before doing number one, maybe do honorable mentions.
Yeah. So I was trying to think of honorable mentions for this year. My honorable mention talks honestly comes down to Forbidden West, because it's talking about the AAA games, and so much of them are taking up my slots this year. I really wish that I had explored more indies this year, but none of them had the same appeal. Where like a Hades or an Inscription kind of came through that kind of caught my eye, I guess. Forbidden West, knowing full well that I was very hot off of Horizon Zero Dawn, suffered two things. One, yeah, it dated itself right next to Elden Ring, which, come on, Sony. The other part of it was that, kind of my earlier gripes with it. It was, I played a third of the way through, and it didn't feel like the story, we weren't playing Aloy's story as much as we were just trying to get it, people were talking all of the fucking time. And I just want to kill fucking robo-dinosaurs with some sort of direction and purpose.
And Aloy does get annoyed with that too.
She does.
She's like,
She's
you're dealing with your petty things, and there's a apocalyptic
Right.
thing
Dude,
going to
the
happen.
fucking, this whole thing, I'm not going to say the spoilers for
Yeah.
the storyline for it, but yeah, it's guys, we're all gonna, it feels like I'm a global warming scientist right now in this fucking game. And everybody's like, yeah, but Richard called me fat last week, and they explain it in great detail, and I was just like, what the fuck am I doing? I remember kept thinking the entire time. But then the game is gatekept behind certain parts of it where it's just like, fuck me, dude. And I remember I'm at, right now, this is not really a spoiler, but I'm in an area where some of the bots are sick, and they're friendly bots or whatever or something.
Yes.
And you've played the game through.
Yeah.
Tell me you aren't annoyed with that part.
Oh, that part's so dumb.
Dude, it's so fucking dumb.
It makes sense, but it should have been cut down tremendously. Which is, and I'll leave that. That's one of my honorable mentions as well. Is
Yeah.
that there's so much of this game I forgot. I remember the ending of it, and that's about it. There's so much of that game that I just don't remember. I remember I enjoyed it a lot, but I need to replay it again to actually let the rest of the game sink in.
I am not remembering
There's a lot of filler.
this game fondly, which is already my first part, and I haven't completed it, and I will go back and beat it because I bought it and because I want to just be like, all right, I'm gonna fucking force my way through this thing.
It's beautiful though.
It's a beautiful game. It's great. It's got all the AAA polish in the world, which is always fantastic, and the gameplay feels smooth-ish for the most part. But good God, man, shut the fuck up, world. I'm like, this is how you turn a hero into a villain. This is where I'm like, can I start? Mass Effect: The Collection came out recently, which is almost in itself an honorable mention, and I'll shut up. And it just reminded me how much I enjoyed the Paragon Renegade options with that stuff. Mass Effect did that really, really well. And it really makes me wish they did this in this game, because I would have loved to just be like, fuck it, Aloy's the villain now. She's the villain for number 3, and then you've got to be a new character and go fight her. That's the spin I want to do with it. Maybe it is. Fuck, I don't know. I haven't beat the game, so that could very well be a case. But honorable mention goes to that. Anyways,
Okay, I guess I'll go next. I had a bunch. Played a lot of replay stuff that I had. XCOM 2. Replayed that this year. That is one of my top 5 games of all time, probably. Love that. Going off of that, I'm also playing Marvel's Midnight Suns, which is made by the same team as XCOM 2.
I've heard fun things for gameplay.
It's, yeah.
That's the positive.
qualifier.
Yes.
The gameplay is incredible. The other, like, 50% that you do where you have to interact with people, you're talking about a lot of
It's, like,
talking.
very
There's
simple,
way
isn't it?
too much talking.
Yeah.
So much talking. But
Comic Hero one.
I'm not going to get too into it, but because it's honorable mention.
All right.
Played Up was on there as well. Replayed Doom Eternal. Awesome game. Metal Hellsinger, which I don't know if any of you all played.
I'm familiar with it. I haven't played it though.
It's really fun, and the soundtrack is that, like, because you basically kill things to the beat of the music.
Metal,
like,
right.
Boom, boom, like, and you do it to the beat of the song. But a lot of the songs sound the same. To be honest, as somebody who loves metal, and that's what I listen to.
Well, didn't they specifically get
for the
new
game.
Yeah, they got a
songs written
band to
by
make
a lot
it.
of very famous artists
For the game,
Right.
but they still sound very similar, which dampened my enjoyment of it. Horizon Forbidden West, and one I wanted to just mention and talk with you about was The Quarry. It's not going. It's not anywhere near my top 5, but I just want to talk to you about it, and I wanted to just say how upset I was that I paid $70 for this game, brand new.
Yeah,
and
I've seen
much
it down to
I hated
25,
it.
and I still haven't bought it.
Didn't you play
Nathan's
it?
like, he could go lower.
Do what?
Didn't you play it?
No.
Oh, I'm sorry. I thought
No.
you did. I thought you did.
So
play
we
it.
played the third Man of Medan. The
Okay.
Ashes
See, I haven't
or
played that.
whatever.
I played the first one and hated it and was done. I'm just looking for Until Dawn again. I'm just looking for.
Yeah.
I felt that same way about the whole series for a
Experience.
very long time. It's just like I played Until Dawn,
And
I
it
tried
hasn't
playing the
happened
other
yet.
ones, and I'm like, nah. And everybody else was like, yeah, that's fair. And I'm like, okay.
I got a really funny clip before I'm done. Say from when Kelly and I were playing it together. You're basically in a cell, and a cop has his gun pointed at you, and you're this girl, and you can try to take it from him. So I failed every QTE just on purpose to see what would happen.
Yeah.
And he goes to like attack you. You take his gun from him, and then all he does is like you fail the QTE, and he just takes the gun right back from you. It's the dumbest interaction that means nothing. I'll have to send you all a clip, but
That sounds about right.
it's so stupid.
So it's just like we want you to feel like there's a choice, but
There's no
the
choice.
story is going to go exactly the way
Yeah.
we want.
Yeah, which is not what Supermassive does, which was very frustrating, and it's one of my top disappointment. Like, it probably is my top disappointment of the year, video game wise, because it's really the sequel to Until Dawn. The rest of those are kind of like short stories, and this was the meaty chunk. Like, this is the sequel to Until Dawn. We got these stars,
Yeah.
production.
Yeah,
and
I mean it's
huge
like it's
disappointment.
not part of the Dark Anthology.
Right.
Exactly.
Yeah.
yeah, huge disappointment for me.
I heard a critic, or like one of the people I watched with like video game stuff recently. I think it was like a quote to something to the effect of like, you know, with storytelling, if you're giving 2 or more options, you have a choice. If you give them one option, really, you're giving them no choice. And I was like, okay, I see what you're getting, and that's like exactly what I think he like means. It's like, okay, you can pass the QTE and you do it, or you don't pass the QTE and nothing of consequence happens.
That's
right?
more of a Telltale kind of thing, to be honest.
Yeah. Telltale could be really bad about that, too.
Supermassive doesn't really do that. That's why. That
Or they
really
just
took me
die
out
at
of
the
the
end. Right.
experience. Yeah.
Yeah.
Sorry, Nathan. Any honorable mentions for you?
Luigi's Mansion again. I just love that game.
So
It's Luigi.
I Dome Keeper. Have you seen that? Is
Mm-mm.
that familiar?
Oh, that was Mason's nickname in high school.
Nice.
Yeah. Suck it, Mason.
So it's kind of what was that game called? Defender or something like that. It's like a really
Dungeon
old.
Defenders?
No,
Oh.
like a very old style game where you're like this little thing and there's missiles coming in and you're having to like shoot them to stop them from like destroying the planet.
That's
Oh.
Galaga.
No, I know the one
I
you're
think it was called
thinking of.
Defender or something like that. It's a very like super old like Atari era game.
Man, I wish I could remember. I know what you're
but
talking about.
So it's that kind of thing where you've got this dome and there are monsters and aliens coming to destroy you, but it also does a little bit of like Dig Dug sort of gameplay because
I love Dig Dug.
you go down into the planet and are mining resources to bring them back up to your dome to then upgrade your dome, and it's a roguelike.
Ooh, okay. Let's
Press
the
put
button.
yeah,
Wish
put
list.
that on the
Yeah.
list.
So that one, it doesn't quite hit my
No, it still sounds
it doesn't
awesome.
quite like hit my top 5, but it was a very fun experience. I do recommend it. The rogue light nature of it is not as strong as a lot of other roguelites are. Like you do get some permanent progress stuff, but it's more like you are just unlocking different loadouts that you can use whenever you go into the world. It's not like any sort of like meaty progression.
Right.
So like once you've kind of unlocked everything, the like drive to continue to play it really diminishes. And you know, in the vein of roguelikes, I guess another one that I would like to mention is Shotgun King. That is just a really fun, super light game, but it is another roguelike that you are playing as the king on a chessboard, except
I've heard of this one.
You have no pieces.
Oh no,
Yeah.
you've talked about this.
You just
one
have
on
a
the
shotgun.
screen.
Yeah.
And you're basically just trying to get to the end every time, and after you clear the board, you pick a buff for yourself and a buff for the enemy team. And it's just a like constantly trying to figure out like what's the best combination of like what they're like what you're choosing them to be doing and what you're choosing yourself to be doing, and it's pretty challenging.
Surprised no Vampire Survivor mention.
You know, I have played a lot of
You
Vampire
did
Survivor.
play a lot of Vampire Survivor.
You
But-
have, and I played a little.
I don't know, like it's just one of those
It's
like
nothing to
it's
it.
like popcorn, just like snack food, like you were saying with Marvel Snap. It's
Yeah.
just it's not like, oh my god, this is such a cool game. It's just like, nah, it's just a quick little satisfying like pop it in, play it for a little while, and then do something else.
Yeah, you're like, I've got 30 minutes. I already ate lunch. Fuck it, let's just jam this a couple times. Hit the dopamine, go to work.
Well, I mean, it gets to the point like with playing that game, for a while I was trying to get all the achievements in it too, and that is a never-ending rotation because every update they add more achievements. I have fallen behind at this point.
Oh my god!
So that's why I kind of stopped playing it too, because like every time they'd come out,
How
with
dare
some
they
new
take
stuff,
away your
and I'd, like,
platinum?
I'd hop in and I'd like do a couple just to get caught up. It's like, oh yeah, this is cool. Keep giving me reasons to come back. There's too much now. I can't do it. But it was getting to the point to where I would literally have it like tabbed out and still running because I just you don't die. So I would just leave it running once I had like gotten my build set up, and would then just come back once it was over to like unlock the achievements and then like start another run. And yeah, it's not like a full attention grabbing game.
Oh no.
Well, and we've learned with you especially, if it's not a full attention thing, it's not really.
Then it's
your
not
big
exactly
one.
getting my
gonna
full
get it.
attention.
Mm, yeah. Sometimes even things that should have your full attention don't.
All right, ready for game of the year then?
Games of the year,
I'm
not
gonna go
necessarily
first.
from this year.
Because I know exactly what's gonna happen. I'll go first.
No. I think you're going to get pleasantly surprised.
I'm not. Mine is without a doubt God of War Ragnarok.
Yeah.
I
I don't fault you for it.
I know, and I'm not gonna like be like, oh, you had your last word. Now I'm gonna have the last
No,
word.
I don't care. I think it's a lovely game.
kind of thing. I absolutely love this game from top to bottom. It would be in my top 10 or top 5 of all time if it weren't for a few quibbles, which I'm going to talk about here in a moment. The music in this game is absolutely outstanding. When it does those epic moments, the like chorus swells, the orchestra plays.
Oh, the score comes in. And
You see every inch or every penny that they threw at this game. Every single environment. I took so many screenshots in this game. It's incredible the amount of different colors, the amount of different backgrounds that you can have and explore. One of my favorite examples is, before I get to that, is the side quest. I have delved into every side quest. I don't know if I've really done that for any game before. Because most of the time, side quests, and again, I already know The Witcher 3 is going to be thrown back at me. I don't care. But most of the time, side quests in games are just go fetch this, do this. It doesn't have any impact on the story. It
doesn't build a lore.
It doesn't mean anything. But in this game, I feel like I get so much characterization of the characters through the side quest, and every character I fully enjoyed. I mean, I would just love I could listen to them just sit and talk with each other for the longest time. There's one scene.
And you will.
I don't know. There's one part where, like, Tyr, Brock, Sindri, Freya are all sitting at the dinner table, and you can just listen to them talk for the longest time without doing that. And I love that. Just listen to them talk because the writing in this game is some of the best in any game I have ever played. every choice that the characters make seems like a choice like I would make. Not me personally, even though I am big brain to understand Inception, all that good stuff.
No,
but they don't do things just for the sake of video game progression or anything like that. They feel like real people that
they're motivated to do things in the story.
Exactly, and there are so many great lines from this game. I mean, we've already talked about the death can have me when it earns me, and one of my favorites that made me actually tear up was at the very end of the game when Atreus is about to leave. And I don't know if you remember, it's when Kratos says, Atreus will stay, Loki will go. And I was like, oh yeah. God.
Well, I think all of the parts where Kratos is like actually being a real dad to Atreus and just being humbled in himself.
Yeah.
Those parts always hit me right in the gut. Like, this was very emotional.
The favorite, and I didn't want to ruin it, which is why I read it off of here. It's one of the conversations towards the end where Kratos is talking to someone, even though we practically spoiled everything else. I still won't say it. Where the other character says, the culmination of love is grief, and yet we love despite the inevitable. We open our hearts to it. To grieve deeply is to have loved fully, because this character has died, and she was talking about before that she was going to die. And I sent that to Kel. I was like, look at like just how beautiful this game is, how well the motion cap in it is absolutely outstanding. I think the only game still with better mocap in it is, I think Last of Us 2 still kind of holds the crown for that. But as for backgrounds and just general graphics, I mean, God of War Ragnarok has some of the best I've ever seen. But it is my number one for this year, definitely. But it's not going to be on my top 5 of all time. Some of the reasons that we were talking about a moment ago, the Ironwood section should have been condensed from like 3 hours or something into 30 minutes.
Yeah.
The only thing you really need to get out of that is that there are other giants out there. They're in these marbles, and Kratos will die at the end.
Or prophecy says.
Yeah. Which I still don't quite understand the nebulous idea of prophecies. Somehow Kratos still didn't die at the end, even though there's prophecies that said that. I know that you can break prophecies somehow, but it doesn't really...
But they never address how we broke prophecy.
Yeah, they don't really codify that on how he did. Like, I understand he changed greatly.
Right.
But I don't understand. Like, prophecies don't seem as ironclad as I thought they were.
Heimdall was sick as fuck, too. They shouldn't have
Heimdall was awesome.
I love Heimdall. I was talking to a buddy of mine, and he was just like, I don't think Heimdall's that great of a character. I was like, dude, Heimdall's the fucking best. If I'm anybody in this game, I'm Heimdall. I don't want trouble. I just want to be a fucking ass. Everybody hates this guy. But fuck, I can't kill him. Like... Yeah. And the other thing was what I said to you a second ago was Atreus, you play as him too much, in my opinion. Yeah.
I get that they want to have a little bit more diversity with that, but you still play as him too much. I didn't think his skill set and moves were near as fun as Kratos's. He doesn't have as much variety, and you play as him for probably 20% of the game.
I'd say almost 25%. Like it curves up by the time you think about it in the end, you're like, we have played a lot of Atreus.
Yeah.
And I think he could have purely been a bow. I think they didn't even need to give him melee.
Melee stuff.
Yeah, I think melee could have been like extra finisher parts of it. But I think they could have expanded bow play, because if we've seen anything from Horizon Zero Dawn is that you can expand that tool set more. And just the actual fighting itself started to feel good. And so I was like, I can finally move around, because Kratos is a fucking chonky tank when he moves, but Atreus is very light on his feet. And then you're hitting things, and you're like, I'm used to hitting things with a giant axe as Kratos, and this is just not feeling the same hitting with a bow. Yeah, like a little wooden bow.
When you get that axe, you really feel that weight, behind, because it staggers the enemy.
Yeah.
You just feel the weight whenever you swing it. And the chains are very different. It's more CC kind of base. Right. And Atreus, like, you hit him with the bow, and it
doesn't have the same impact to it at all. Right.
But that's the end for me at God of War Ragnarok. Easily my number one game of the year. Nothing really came close to it. It's a 10 in my opinion. I love that game so much. I'll be playing it again next year. I'm sure I will. Love that game so much. Now the big boys get it. You've heard it earlier this year in the podcast where I basically went to sleep for a little while. Here they go again.
So it's got to be Call of Duty Modern Warfare 2.
When you hold L2 to de-escalate.
Yeah. I mean, you get to go into an airport. You get to shoot people. No.
Yeah.
Elden Ring?
Yeah.
Yeah. I mean,
it's Elden Ring. It's been a while though.
Best game of all time for you?
Of all time?
I mean, all time.
I can't say that. I don't know if I'd say that about any game.
I don't really have like a jump to.
It's your top.
I know. Even if I would say it's in contention. But Test of Time is everything to me in both video games.
Oh, true. No, I know. I'm just saying, like, is it up there?
I would say it's one I would probably I would throw into the ring against a couple of these other ones over like the period of years and be like,
I guess the question too is like, if the game is like evergreen, like, can you go back and replay through it again and still find it just as satisfying?
I've been wanting to test that recently after this most recent.
Didn't you do that?
Do what?
Didn't you do that?
I played through on New Game Plus right after.
Yeah,
gotcha.
And just like sped run to the end just to see how quick it could be done. And
Sounds like
it can be done very quickly.
See, I was so much more in playing new builds whenever I was going through New Game Plus, and I think
I was just like, no, big hammer.
Yeah, no, you committed.
Boy.
You love being able to see like how many New Game Pluses it takes before these things don't die in one hit. Like,
Yeah.
But at that point, you're finding new tools to keep escalating that even further. For me, I was like, all right, well, I really love the spellcasting like build and dex build, but then they finally, with this update, they added a couple of cosmetics, and I'm like, oh, these builds, like, and more builds have come out since because people are like, oh yeah, you use like the holy disc and you got the shield that like bounces them back off again and deals like double. It's like a reflecting one, but they'll throw like the holy disc. They'll come out and they'll come back, and then you reflect it, but it continues to do another blast.
Okay, before y'all get lost in the weeds,
No,
why is this your number one?
Why it's our number one? Nathan, you go ahead. I'm like, oh gosh, about.
I mean, it is like the perfect execution that the Dark Souls series has been building to ever since its inception.
Yes.
It is the best Dark Souls game that's ever been made.
Yeah.
So if you like Dark Souls, this is it being truly perfected, and like showing that FromSoft is able to make an open world game that knocks it out of the park.
First try.
Like,
First try.
Yeah, first time they had ever done something like this, and they executed on it flawlessly.
Right. I think
there's really nothing bad I have to say about this game. Like, there's nothing that they did that I found particularly frustrating. I think all the challenges felt, I guess what I could say, if there was any detraction, is this game overall, though it is really, really polished and really smartly constructed, it is quite possible to end up a little stronger in this than without grinding or anything.
you have said that difficult curve was a thing for you.
The difficulty curve didn't feel right.
Yeah.
And I even went with a melee build, which typically,
It's the hard
if you
mode
go
of this
melee, you're playing the game harder than you have to, because casters have always been the way to just cheese the game out.
It's true. I cheesed it.
So yeah, like that's maybe one small detraction from it, but I still found the whole thing to just be overall extremely satisfying. It was a depth of the world that was truly impressive. The scale was beautiful. It looked great.
Talk about screenshot games. Like,
oh, yeah.
This one was one of those ones very easily on that.
Yeah, and it just kind of kept you constantly just impressed.
Mm-hmm.
Like, every new area you went to, every new boss you encountered, it was just more and more just, I don't know, it looked better.
Yeah.
The further along you got through it, it's just like always just like, wow. Like like a good example is the that snowfield area.
Consecrated snowfield. Yeah.
Consecrated snowfield. Such a difficult area to get to. Once you finally got there, and just like, all of this is unnecessary.
You don't even need to go there. You could possibly
beat the entire
miss it.
game without this whole huge section of it, but they still made it beautiful. They filled it with lots of interesting enemies, really good challenges, and I mean, literally the hardest boss in the game is hidden all the way at the very bottom, off like the far corner, down a bunch of tree branches and into this ancient city. Like, ridiculous.
Also,
the
like,
depth of this game.
It just says so much about like every little bit of detail and care and nurture with it. Like,
none of it was half done.
No, everything was done right. And I think part of the credit as well, one of the things I really love about Elden Ring, when I'm especially translating it against other AAA games, is the importance of voice acting done absolutely right. And I think if this is something as a video game player where with Pokemon there's not really voice acting, and then you have mini games who doesn't do voice acting, and they still translate very well.
Scarlet and Violet is an example of one that really needs voice acting.
Needs it, right?
Like, that could have that really could have punched it up to being a much better game.
Oh, for sure.
Like,
But
it's clear now that they are stumbling there.
my
But
thing with it is, I've realized with voice acting is it's just like it needs to be done perfect or don't do it at all, because there are definitely games that can still exist without it and still be good. You know, I think of the perfect contrast would be God of War said only what it needed to say. And it very much in a Kratos theme of being like, he's a man of few words, so he's only going to say it. And that I appreciate that. From comparing it to my biggest gripe against Horizon, which is they wouldn't shut up. And there are times where I'm like, if I could just read skip this, I fucking would. So I wouldn't have to hear, but the ball, and then turning into that. And then you go to Elden Ring, which is a game that speaks very softly and rarely with its characters, but it's always just a little bit tits of the lore. Everything is very interesting when they're speaking. Right, and most of the time, you know, like I would say more often than not, their dialogue is like stuff you're like intrigued by. There's creating a mystique. There's creating a little character lore. They're talking about the world. They're telling you about these little interesting things, and it doesn't feel like they're just explaining it. It feels like organic because it's a true fantasy in its way. I mean, at the end of the day, like why I put Pokemon Legends Arceus at number 2, even over something like God of Roar, is you know, it not an appropriate name, but because it's the best in its franchise of a franchise that I love. And then you talk about the Soulsverse, and Elden Ring truly is the best of the franchise with this. So I think that it's absolutely unequivocally earned Game of the Year for me, Nathan, and everybody else for that matter.
Yeah.
And I think just that in itself, it does have that replayability of, like, after the new update, I've immediately been like, oh, I want to go to this as soon as I finish out some of these other games. Just because now they have a couple cosmetic styles that make me feel like I can build the character I want. I was like, oh, they got Virgil's hair from Devil May Cry. I can do that now. And I saw somebody make a Sailor Moon build. And I said, fuck yeah, that looks really cool. And I just got hyped again about it. And it's just to have that excitement a year later almost, just be like, fuck yeah, I can't wait to replay this game, says a lot about how much they're doing right.
Yeah, so that's the one thing where I think, like, long term, I don't know how this is going to hold up, because whenever I think of like picking Elden Ring back up, I just think that's a lot of time. And it's not like something I would want to necessarily go back into from the start. And it also makes me wonder, because I mean, yeah, like you said, they just dropped an update that added some content to
I need some story DLC.
Well, so I'm curious how quickly I will like actually pick up whenever the DLC launches. Like,
really,
just because like the thing I've found over time with Souls games is they release their DLC quite a while after I've played it.
Frustratingly later,
and by that point, I am very rusty with that game, and that's not good.
It makes you feel really bad when you go into it because you're like, oh, I remember. It's like when you, yes, I agree. This is a big problem with it because you'll go back in the game and you're like, you remember when you were, it's like you remember when you were in shape and you were very strong, and now you're going back in and things are harder and you're as fat as you've ever been. You've not been to the gym in several months. You forgot what button does what, and these dragons are all murdering you. So, no, I agree. From Software, if you're listening, put the DLC out a little faster, man. I'm only gonna be so good by the time this comes out. I've only ever been so good ever.
I mean, like historically, I have actually not played a lot of the DLCs. I've picked them up, started to play them, bounced off of them, and didn't. Like Ashes of Arendelle or something like that. I think is the only one I ever actually played.
Oh my god, the DLCs are all so fucking good.
They are. Like
Ring City too was
I didn't do Ring City, and then the Abyss one with Manus. Like
yeah.
I couldn't do that one. Like, I came back with a character that should have been capable of it, but I was no longer capable of it.
Yeah.
So I don't know. That's the only thing that's like
that's
a hesitation.
That's a podcast challenge we need to do. We need to have one where we just run through and then get through into the DLCs, like, and play that one. I still, for the record, why Elden Ring continues to also be like totally bragging worthy on. For the people who don't click with it, because there are definitely people who wouldn't. Price, you're definitely in that camp where you're like,
oh yeah,
I am terribly frustrated with it.
There is still that thing where you made an immediate beeline into that little gargoyle.
Yeah,
thing,
you went into an area. So you did what he did with Horizon, but you didn't like the challenge that it gave you. But
it's in Baby Town.
No.
Why is it in Baby Town?
Because sometimes you gotta go back to Baby Town
to
find Baby Town's secrets.
The whole time.
So Baby Town has some secrets, and you said, "I want to go find them," and you got.
Please continue.
I still just like I do find it very funny that you picked the gargoyle thing as your starting item.
Yeah,
that's the only way you could have even gotten in there.
Yeah, you had to.
And that's how you immediately detoured the wrong way. Like, you know, that
It's organic
that
love,
happens.
though. It does. I think that there's something actually really funny about saying that you are like, I'm in Babytown, but I signed up for a town that went to Jeffrey Epstein's house in the neighborhood, and you literally, of a list of things you could buy, it was like Jeffrey Epstein's house ticket, and then it was like health potion and other things you could have chose. And for your sheer brilliance that is you, Price, with all of your interstellar and interception like brain, you chose
Well,
a Jeffrey
yeah,
Epstein
you
house
saw
ticket.
the thing that said that it was a key, and you're like, oh, well, I should have more keys
with it.
probably. And that's
Which
totally
is
fair.
A fair and organic thought process. I'm not faulting him for it. I just think it's amazing that's what you picked. You went in and said, "Baby hurts," which is why I keep telling Nathan and you. I was like, I desperately want to do a show where it's like for a couple hours you come over and we guide you through Elden Ring to get you out of Babytown and make you actually play the game, because you went to Jeffrey Epstein's house and you said, I don't think I like the world anymore.
Yeah, and then I went outside and saw, what's her name, Ghislaine Maxwell or whatever, his right-hand woman.
Oh, just
riding the centaur at him.
Yeah.
I was like, all right, Babytown boss.
Well, and this is the world reminding you that, listen, it gives you a reason to come back.
Yeah, that.
Or
So their
just keep
mindset
grinding
was
until you kill it.
definitely, Like, this establishes the idea that you cannot face every challenge that
Yes.
is there, and you have to like sneak around, come back when you're stronger. Is what they, I think,
Game direction was
hoped
trying.
to do with that.
But what
That
Price
doesn't
said,
always happen.
I'm insulted by, I walk into the door and I get my ass kicked, and I walk out the door thinking, well, I should leave this home, and I got my ass kicked. So
It's
why
an
am I
open world. You can go anywhere, but there's that guy right there,
Yeah.
and I don't fucking like his.
I know. So, okay.
He's challenging me with his aura.
With his smug aura. Let me ask you this though, Price. If they had
Can we stop this?
No,
Is there anything else you all have to say?
This is my last type of thought, and
Oh
I
my
am genuinely
God.
wondering if this makes a difference. If they had a threat level thing, right? Like if you saw their names
Yes.
and it was like red
yes.
or black, would that have made the holistic difference? for you?
Yes. Because I've known, like, oh, like, he's level 100.
Yeah.
I am -2.
Yeah.
I don't need to go anywhere near
Yeah.
him.
See, and that's, I would say for Elden Ring, which is nothing they've ever done, they always want you to say, technically you could fucking fight and kill him at level
I mean,
1.
I
and
saw
we did.
people
Yeah.
like watching streams that saw people beat him
Yeah.
out of the gate.
Yeah, I mean,
They wasted a lot
a
of
lot of
doing
time,
it,
mind you. And
but
I
it
was one of
can
those
be
people.
done.
Yeah, it can be done. It's painfully frustrating.
But you still get that if the threat indicator is a million levels above.
right.
you.
But to your point, you're like, I just want to know that it's like this is a challenge I could do, but it would be very inappropriate for me to do.
So
I'm sure that's a
with
mod
it-
out there.
With anybody that's asked about this game,
Yeah.
because I've had some people ask about
Yeah,
like
same.
wanting to play it and being like, they couldn't really get into it. And it's like the way that you want to play this is bounce off of your problems.
Yep.
Like,
Ouch. Nope.
Yeah,
Ouch.
basically, it's just like, it's with climbing. It's like, give it a couple of goes.
Mhm.
If it's not working out, try a different problem.
Yeah.
So that's the best way to move through that world, and that's the way to like not let it just push you away and have you not getting what is an otherwise very rewarding experience if you can, get over that hurdle.
Plus, the dopamine high of killing something that's just like insulting you with its level. Fuck you, Smug Knight. Fuck you, Jeffrey Epstein.
To each their own.
Yeah. Anyway, so that is our top 5 of the year, 2022, at an all-time.
Really in the weeds there.
Yeah, we did. We went deep into the weeds, but let's be honest, we knew that was going to be the case. This is probably already a pretty lengthy video, so I'll go ahead and keep it brief. If you enjoy our content, as always, let us know, because we just take long gaps if you don't. And sometimes scheduling gets in the way, to be fair. But
Is there anything you all are particularly looking forward to next year besides Zelda?
Final Fantasy 16 is at the
Yeah, never mind.
is very,
Yeah.
very high on my list.
Yeah,
with
never
it.
mind. 16. Yeah.
16 looks very insane.
As a 15 boy, I can agree.
Yeah. Yeah. Well, that's true. There's one boy band guy leading the cause right now, and you're just like, more boy band, less kid. Yeah. That's
Is 16 coming out on PC? I feel like they
they announced.
stopped for a
I think
little
they
bit.
announced that it's supposed to be on
Okay.
PC. I think it might have a delayed release from console, but because I think
Yeah, it's PlayStation first.
yeah, it's PlayStation said I think it's either 6 months or maybe even a year. So, which is fine. By the time it's on PC, it'll be full price. And then
At
it'll drop.
least PlayStation, Sony has started actually putting their stuff out on PC.
Yeah, they've slowly. been
So
trying.
like so whenever the new God of War dropped,
Mhm.
the old God of War dropped
Came
on
out
PC.
Yeah.
So I might play that at some point.
In 2024, he's
really
going to be
good.
like, man, God of War Ragnarok.
Yeah.
But yeah, so anyway, that's our show. We won't cover any news or anything like that. I saw PlayStation's doing a modular thing, but I'll talk about that after.
Modular thing.
Oh yeah, Hades 2
Oh, baby!
is very, very high up there.
I've been replaying it just for
Yeah.
the sake of it.
As soon as I saw that on the Game Awards trailer, that's on my
next year. Hades 2 is going to definitely be
that's
a big deal.
That's an easy top 5 on that one. Spoiler. But yeah, make sure to like, subscribe, do the things. I don't know if this ends up on Spotify anymore. What you do with that one? I think you give us a thumbs up there too.
If we put it on there.
Just listen. Just fucking. We talk for a long time. Just put us on in the background while you go to sleep. Let it loop, and we'll make millions. And if we make $1 million, then put us in the comments below, and we'll give you $1 or something. Hit us with your Venmo, Cash App, PayPal, whatever. But we've got to make $1 million first.
Gotta make that first billion.
Got to make that first billion. And
It's so easy.
it's so easy, guys. It's so easy. That's our show. Tune in next time. I don't know. Go watch our movie talk if you want to hear more from us. Bye.
Yeah.
That's it.
Bye.
Go play Elden Ring.
You can.
Yeah.